Call to order the regular meeting of the Dayton City Council for September 10th. Stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I need a motion and a second.
Let's
for
make
the
this quick. We
agenda.
got excitement on TV tonight. It's a circus.
Okay, I got a motion by Dave and a second by Matt. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. On to consent. I need a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Dave and Scott, second. Discussion.
I have
Go ahead.
just two questions. On the item B, payment of claims, there is an item for Cannabis for $319K for burying power lines on 117th.
Correct.
I remember us talking about that. I don't remember how we were paying for that.
So that came out of the Stormwater Fund, and it's related to the Rayburn Trails development east side. We had the same agreement on the west side, the first development for Rayburn Trails, and we split the cost with the developer to put those underground.
That's what that was. Thank you.
Yep.
And then on item C, which is page 34 on our packet, and this is around the approval of awarding the contract for the water main and extension of territorial. And I guess there were two items on that. One, just a second here. Sorry about that. So in the bids, the low bidder appeared to be quite a bit higher on traffic control, and you know, I guess that's fine. They put their money where they feel like they need it. But there were the other item that just caught my eye, and I guess I just wanted to ask. They were significantly lower on the cost of the fire hydrant. They were at $14,000 versus $20,000 and $23,000 for the other two bidders. I guess I just wanted to make sure that you know, that I thought fire hydrants were kind of a standard thing, and that seemed like quite a lot of difference in cost. So I just want to, I mean, I'm not concerned about where the other guys got their number. I just want to make sure we're getting the fire hydrant that we expect at that, and not one I might put in my lawn or something.
Very specific equipment and materials that are bid in the, I mean, exact thread, type, style, model number, everything. So, yeah.
Okay, something that's
Yep.
our standard or.
Yep. Yep. It's a documented standard that's used in all of the plans for the city.
Okay, I was just curious because there was that difference in the cost of just that one item.
Sure.
That's all I had.
Anybody else?
I guess I wanted to extend on that too. Is one of our last trainings that we did, we noticed that there's some different fire hydrants in our area that have different threads on them. There's Maple Grove and there's Dayton thread, and we've got them intermixed in some different areas.
What does
Go
that
ahead.
mean, thread?
For the hoses to connect.
Yeah, we got adapters that we
There's-
got to use on some, and
To be honest, I have no idea why there's so many thread patterns out there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them out there. And unfortunately, I think it was Sundance Green 6th.
Yeah.
Is the one that I'm familiar with, where they got some of the 6th edition of Sundance Greens.
Mm-hmm.
They brought out the wrong threads for them.
So are you talking about like threads per inch or
So what I'm-
size of the
what I'm
pipe?
talking about is actually there's Maple Grove has a certain type of thread pitch that they'll use on.
Pitch, that's what I
Yep,
mean.
and then Dayton has a different type of thread pitch, and we've got some that are intermixed in the
I thought
city.
that was a good idea.
I don't
There's
know
a lot of
where
different
it
ones out there,
happened.
too.
Oh,
I just know that we're coming across it and we're like, crap.
Oh, man, yeah, because, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, yeah, to Jason's point, last fall, I believe we found it in the 6th edition. Then we ran across it at the Cubes. So we're going to check the other buildings just to make sure that because we have to have the proper thread. We have both threads, either have national standard or we have a Minneapolis thread. It's usually one of those two. And if the Minneapolis and the National, you can tell that it connects, but it blows off pretty quickly once you start filling the 5-inch lineup. So we do need to try to be consistent of that, or at least know from the fire department's perspective on where those might get put in. I understand it, because obviously we're using Maple Grove water at that end of the community. But we would like to see those all standardized so we don't run into the issue within the community.
This may seem like a silly question, but are there simply an adapter we can put on it and leave in case, so that they're all standard?
Actually, we can. There is a thought process too of looking at maybe going away from that completely. And I haven't talked to Jason about this yet, but going to a stores connection, which is a standard stores connection on a 5-inch piece of hydrant line. So therefore, we wouldn't have to worry about the type of thread that we had. And you'll see that in various communities around the country. So it would be just, and then it also minimizes other people trying to connect to that hydrant as well.
Okay.
Do you know how many are currently not to date? My question, are we talking 5 or are we talking 50? Trying to understand the magnitude of it, ballpark.
Honestly, we don't know, because Jason and I started a little bit of that last fall. We found a few, and we just ran across these ones the other night, doing some training at the Cube. So I don't know that number. It's definitely more than 5, and it could be 50.
Marty, do you guys drain every hydrant when you drain in the fall? And can your guys check it as part of their checklist so we know which ones are which?
So the ones that we have a standard thread that we use for hydrant flushing, and that fits on all the ones that we're flushing. Where we don't know is where they're on private systems like the Cubes, that they maintain all of their own hydrants, and over King Solutions, they have theirs. So we don't test those, so we don't know which ones they are. But all the ones that we do for the City of Dayton are all correct threads. So
the bottom line is you just have to have all the connections that you could possibly run into, so, okay. Just seems very odd.
I just didn't think that was something that you could put into our building code of some sort, I would say.
The same information is on every plan.
Yeah.
I don't know why the wrong ones get out there. I suspect what happens is there's not that many suppliers, so pretty much they go to the same place. And often they know what communities want. Mm-hmm. And I'm completely speculating this, but what I expect is some of the properties in the south actually have a Maple Grove address listed because of the zip code down there. And then when the supplier sees Maple Grove, they may be supplying the Maple Grove threads, just not on purpose, but it can happen. We have had those. It did seem like we isolated to I didn't know about the Cubes one. That one's newer to me, but to one development. We checked a lot of them. The hard part is you can get it threaded on there, and if it's not under pressure, it feels solid.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell the difference, but once you load it with pressure, then
those latent conditions that then turn into real serious issues.
Which takes a lot more effort to crank every hydrant open and close to check each one. So.
Yeah. I guess where you're usually standing when you try to pressure it up. Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion about consent? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Consent's passed 5-0. Open forum. Do we have anybody here for open forum? Do we have anybody online for open forum?
Do have one attendee. If you would like to speak at open forum, please use the raise your hand function. I am not seeing a hand, Mayor.
Okay. Staff consultant council updates. Zach?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Just want a couple updates for you. One update is that absentee voting for the general election starts next Friday, September 20th, here at City Hall at 8 a.m. Central Park parking lot update for you. 5-year project has been delayed another week, possibly 2. So rough timeline is start to the near end of September. We have been in constant contact with the school district, so they are aware of this. And then last update, city staff met with the MnDOT today to discuss how the interchange is working out, any future needs we have, any concerns that we have overall, as they're installing the same exact type of interchange at Rogers, at 101 in Rogers. And so it was good to have a good follow-up conversation with MnDOT, as this is the first official check-in we've ever had from them. And we have the next scheduled meeting is in March of next year. So if you have any concerns or questions about the interchange overall, or questions about the process, how it works, so on and so forth, please send those to me as soon as possible, and we can have them on the next meeting agenda, which is in, again, March. So
You can talk to them about landscaping.
that's in our bid, so not on their bid. But we did talk to them extensively about the lights and the coordination of lights once we get all those up and running. 6 of them in a row, we want to make sure we coordinate, so we'll have to get the county involved and us involved and MnDOT involved. to
Where's
make sure
that going?
So those are the lights that are going to be down by the interchange, one on the south side added and one on the north side added.
Traffic lights.
Traffic lights, yeah, sorry, signals. So that we're going to have 6 in that mile stretch or so we want to make sure they're coordinated, otherwise they're going to be stop and go traffic 24/7 there. That's all I got.
Marty?
Mayor and Council, I've only got one update. The Well House 5 project is going ahead. They've done the excavation. They're starting to put block work in, so it's starting to come out of the ground. So I think that's on schedule and going forward.
Gary?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Last night, the Northwest Suburban Fire Academy officially started, so we have 4 firefighters in that. We're starting off with EMT. Unfortunately, since we last met, I stated we have 2 firefighters that were fully trained, with the exception of one still needing EMT. We started to put them through the process, and they both decided they did not have the time to commit to the organization. We spent a little bit of money on one, but unfortunately, that kind of is what happens today. So we are back to 4. Lastly, probably can't see her, but this is Phoenix. Phoenix has had a rough day, obviously, it seems as though. She's still working on getting trained. She's a rescue dog, so we really don't know her history. She is a little bit reluctant to interact with people at the moment, but over the last week, she's done really good interacting with staff and other people. And I did want to take one opportunity, and I don't often comment on the community page on Facebook at all, but I want to make sure that everyone's aware that the dollars that we spent, or that I anticipate spending on Phoenix over the next, say, roughly 8 to 10 years, is going to come from our public safety dollars. Those public safety dollars were designed for, some of those were designed and supposed to be designated for mental health of firefighters. So I just want to make sure that that is out there in the public as a result of that post. So thank you.
Paul? Nothing. John?
Nothing.
Jason?
Nothing there.
Amy?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Although this isn't usually my area, I just thought I would bring to your attention that the city's litigation council let Zach and me know yesterday that Housing First Minnesota has filed for the review of the Minnesota Supreme Court, or Minnesota Court's decision in the lawsuit. They've sent a petition for what's called a writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court. Monty Mills from Green Espel, whose litigation counsel obviously knows more about it. But, what he communicated to Zach and me is that, it's somewhat unlikely that the Supreme Court would take the case, but it is also, it's out there. And, according to the numbers that Monty Mills provided, the Supreme Court gets about 7,500 requests every year for review of cases from across the country, but only grants review of, between 100 and 150. In the past 4 or 5 years, it's actually been lower than that. So it's out there. The petition that they filed, he gave a summary of kind of what they're claiming, what they want the court to review. It's very hyper-technical, but I just want you to know it's out there. I think if you wanted to see the petition, and I think it would be no problem for us to forward that on to you. Other than that, I have nothing.
And that was the Supreme Court, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
to go to the Supreme Court of the United States.
Do they have a deadline upon which they decide whether or not to review that or not?
Usually, and I'm not an expert on this, but usually the way that it works is they will review it, and at least 4 of the justices have to agree that there's an issue worth reviewing. And so they will, I believe that all of the cases that they're going to review in the term that will be starting in October next month for 2024 into 2025, I believe all those cases are set. So I think, and I can verify this with Monty and follow up with you if you'd like, I think that the case would probably, they would decide, if they decide to take it, it would be in the fall of next year that it would be brought before the
But will
court.
we know before then if they will or won't take it's my question.
You will.
And when approximately?
I don't think there's a deadline,
Okay.
but I can follow up with Monty and get more information about that, just to
Okay.
be more precise.
They-
Other than that, I got nothing.
Scott?
I don't think I have anything.
Travis?
Good.
A few things. So it looks like the sign by Pineview Meadows is gone. Did we do that, or did one of the residents do that?
Honey Meadows, it could have been, I think it was probably us guys took it out.
The
You talking, yeah, the large one that's on Dana Road, yep.
The big one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then did did the other signs get letters? Do you know?
Yes, I know that, I'll defer to
Oh,
John.
yeah, I'm sorry, you're talking about the Realtor signs, not the park sign. So,
Correct.
no, I believe the builder did take that out, or they were told to. So, we
Yeah.
had sent out letters, I'm gonna say like in December and April of December of last year, then again in April. I
And-
know there's a few that are newly up.
Are they 4x8s, or are they also beasts?
Oh, no, they're big, so.
So-
no, they're big.
Okay, so we are
We
kind
have
of
some
actively
letters.
chasing those?
Yeah.
Okay. So Marty, maybe this is something for parks, but a couple residents over on Pine Ridge are asking if they could use soccer goals over there, and they said they would pay for them. I don't know what that means for us, for the park, or for, there's a lot of green space there,
Which park was that?
the one on Pine Ridge.
Okay.
The one that has the putting green, and
Yep.
Have you got any contact details
Yeah.
that you could share with me?
I do. They actually also said they'd pay for it, but I can't imagine it's gonna be that big a deal, but, yeah, I do. And we typically don't put bathrooms on neighborhood parks, right? And is that simply because it's just asking for maintenance nightmares?
It's traditionally we've only done it where there's activities, so that where you get large groups of people.
Yeah.
So over here at McNeil and stuff like that. So we haven't really done it in neighbourhood parks. The thinking was people are close to home, so
True.
that would be the way to use it. But we are starting to hear a little bit more about people wanting bathrooms in neighbourhood parks. I know Travis sent something to me today about that as well. So it may be something that we want to
It was the same person, I'm sure,
consider
yeah.
going
That's great,
forward.
yeah.
And Parks Commission talked about it 2 meetings ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yep,
think
they
as
did,
well, and I think you were gonna look into it to figure out the cost, so we could figure
Yeah.
out if that was
Yeah.
worthwhile to put up
Yeah.
porta potty in all the bathrooms.
I have a feeling it's not necessarily the cost, but what follows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times you get tipped over,
Vandals
or,
and-
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's all those things, but yeah, generally they're not a maintenance issue. We have a service
Sure.
that comes around and takes care of them.
As I say,
so-
that's usually just contract. That's not something that you're gonna do anyways, right? That's
Yeah.
Biff's or whoever comes out and does that.
yeah, so yeah, we
Um,
just have the costs to cover for that.
Yeah.
And then I have one more. Paul, I think we covered this about not quite even a year ago, but resident is asking if there are enough speed limit signs on Pineview.
You get forwarded that email?
By state statute, yes.
It's covered, and you think it's adequate to make people understand that that is 40 there, and that's that.
I believe it is adequate because the people that are probably requesting it see them every day. And there's one at the beginning of, just off of South End.
That was the
and
same
one off of
discussion we had,
129,
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
correct.
that's good. Okay, yeah, I guess that's all I got.
On the same note of the signs, I was talking to citizens in Zachary Lane North in Hayden Hills area, and there's like no speed limit signs on that chunk of road. I know you gotta go through a 30 to get there, but people turn in that neighborhood and I saw it happen a couple times, bolt off, so I don't know, again, if we have a standard on that, we've met the standard or not, but I'm curious what that looks like.
I would have to look at it, but technically the cities do not have to post residential roadways. We can enforce them. It's automatic by state statute that residential roadways are 30 miles an hour. So they do not have to be posted, and we can enforce it. But I would have to, if you want to shoot me an email, I can definitely take a look at it and see what I think.
Dave?
Yeah, just two things. Quick, I think we probably all got the email from Elders today about this
Yeah.
TIF survey. And I just want to make sure that, that we're going to respond to that. I'm kind of looking at you, Zach.
Yes, we will respond to that. That's correct.
It didn't sound like it would be any fun for you.
Well, it's already not very fun, so it's just more. As we continue to go down government oversight, they always have more and more requirements for us, just like they do for everybody else. The same applies to the city, so there's always more and more requirements that are needed, typically more detail that they're looking for. We provide them all the detail anyways, but they want it more easily spelled out, basically. So it's already fun enough. So why don't we make it more fun?
Well, it sounded like they're attempting anyway to ask for a good deal more than what the statute requires.
Correct.
So it seems to me like we should respond.
We will respond accordingly based on how much is being asked. I got the email, but I have not had a chance to review exact questions yet.
Okay, and then my other question, this is I guess a little bit selfish, but have we heard anything from the county about Dayton River Road?
The start date is still the 16th, as far as I know. That's the revised start date. But as far as I understand it, they are still progressing on that time schedule, and it will be a 2-week project.
Yeah. Well, it's coming up, so they're
I was gonna
running
say-
out of time to delay it again.
Yeah, I think that it's now or never.
How long do they usually warn a person with those signs at the beginning of the project? and the
Yeah,
end?
normally, I think, Jason, is it 10 days that they like to have it out?
Yeah, I forget if it's 10 business days or 10
Yeah,
calendar days.
I think it's 10 business days, yeah.
Well, they got
They did
6
have a
left.
sign out there, and I noticed that it's
They're late.
moved, so
They're late.
I'm not sure about that
That will
part of
not
it.
be a hard closure, though, so they may not do
Okay.
advance warning. Those are required when you're doing an actual hard closure. with the
Oh,
before in place, because it'll just be,
One lane.
So they'll just be construction ahead signs
Yep.
is basically
Yeah.
how they're prepping for it. Okay.
they'll probably have flaggers during parts of the
Yeah,
project.
okay.
Do we
Makes
know
sense.
what end they're gonna start on yet for that?
I haven't heard, I haven't been attending the meetings, so I don't know if they've gone, I don't think they've discussed that level of
No,
detail.
not yet. Hopefully this week, at the meeting this
Either
week,
the
they
east or
will
west.
have some more detail.
North or south?
And they get to first.
All right, thank you, that's all I do.
I 3 things where you talked about one. The second one was I got an email from someone at CDA just letting me know, and I figured I'd share, that CDA is getting pressure from the city of Champlin to have Dayton start to carry more park load need for CDAA. So as much as they'd share, I reached back out to the person and told them to contact Zach and let me know how we can help. And I figured let everyone else know that I got the email. And then streetlights. I got some questions on streetlights, Marty, particularly on South Diamond between the Champlin border and Dayton Elementary. I got some complaints from residents that those lights are like on one day, off the next, not on. So if you could just have someone keep an eye on them over the weekend, see if something's going on or what. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but if you could, I don't know if we ask the patrol officers to drive down there once a night and just see if they're on, and then let Marty know. That I think
Or if
that'd
they're
be
blinking,
helpful. But
yeah.
and then the other question I got asked by a couple residents that were hoping for more streetlights on their road is we put a lot of streetlights on Pineview, more than we needed. Have we talked about taking some of those out and
Yes,
using them
we
in
did.
other locations?
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
we
we
did.
did.
Okay, and I'm gonna guess that's way more expensive than just getting new ones, or what's the
We beat it to
logic
death.
behind that?
I don't-
I wasn't here, so I don't know. I just figured I'd ask the question.
So there was a lot of toing and froing about this, and it was expensive to take some of them out. And then there was the maintenance aspect of it as well. We would be excluded from the maintenance contract, and so it kind of got very convoluted, as I recall. And it turned out to be a much more expensive proposition than just leaving it as it was.
Do we have a standard when it comes to parks and paths of when we use lights, when we don't, what that looks like, so that it's consistent across the city and not just one street happens to get every light in the city and other streets get no lights?
We do generally, with engineering, we have a general rule of thumb where, if there's a trail there, we try to light it at junctions where it's going to
Intersections,
cross the
yeah.
road, where there's a bend in the road if it's over a certain length. There's certain things like that and distances between them. So it's just some common sense rules of thumb that we use. And generally, those have sufficed with what we're doing.
Is that just for new projects or for existing roads in the city? So like example, next year we're looking at redoing South Diamond. At what point in time do we talk about what the proper space is maybe along South Diamond for lights if we want them? Or, I'm not saying we do want them, but this is a question I was asked, so I want to make sure I can respond.
And I'm not sure how that works retroactively. I would imagine that, we've got the street lights at the intersections on South Diamond currently. I don't see that need for additional street lighting down there, but there may well be. I mean, I think maybe that's something that we could review with the plans, Jason?
Sure, yeah, there's no lighting requirements as far as how many you need or anything else.
Correct.
It's a matter of safety. So we do try to illuminate with the large Cobra style at all of the major intersections, and then if there's any bends where there might not be light at certain parts of the evening, we would light those as well. And then there's other styles like Dayton Parkway where it would go like a corridor lighting system where it's as much maybe decorative as functional. Just the combination of having the more decorative style light and more frequent spacing throughout the corridor.
Oh, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, on to item H.
G.
G.
Huh?
G.
G.
Start with G first.
Oh, G, yep.
That's not too much. I don't have any slides for you. So.
Mayor and Council, this is a proposal that we've worked on for a little while. The Park Commission have been looking to get some resident input into keeping parks clean. We did try something last year with on Earth Day for a cleanup. We didn't have any response for that at all. This effort was promoted by a couple of inquiries from a couple of residents who were keen on adopting a park and if the city actually had a program in place for it, which we didn't at that time. Danielle reached out to other communities around us to see what they did for their Adopt a Park programs. She reached out to, I think, Brooklyn Park, Maple Grove, Rogers, Otsego and Blaine, and they all have different versions of this document. Some of them have a 2-year adoption program, some it's only a shorter program than that, maybe once a year cleanup. But so we kind of split the difference and went for a 1-year program with a monthly input from the residents. The idea is to try and get residents in the new neighborhoods to go and have a community event and get a group of people, whether it's done through the HOA or some other system, or some of the existing parks we could do with Girl Guides or Girl Scouts, whatever it is in this country. And to get other volunteer groups like that to get involved. I showed this to the Park Commission. They were happy with it and approved it to come to council for your approval.
I like it. I think it's, I would almost think that as an additional possibility, some of our parks have got a lot of invasive type stuff, prickly ash, and it'd be nice to somehow organize something to clean that up too. I mean, this is good.
It's a good starting point, and we have tried the invasive species stuff
You just
before.
have to make sure they know what they're looking at.
Yeah,
and they're not snipping their fingers off.
I remember one time we had one organised and the volunteers were all lined up and Doug Baines went out to Cloquet Overlook Park and none of the volunteers turned up and Doug got started and got heat stroke and ended up in the hospital, unfortunately. So it can be a good thing.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great program. My only comment on it is that I think if people are going to volunteer their time to go do this, I don't think we should charge them the $90 for the sign.
Okay. we can take that out if that's what we want to do, yeah.
Was that just to kind of mitigate everybody applying even though they'd had no intention of?
And, they don't have to have the sign, so, I mean, that's just a nice, and it's, pride of ownership type of deal, It's like the signs that you
Sponsored
have
by
on,
whatever, yeah.
picking up the ditch and the road. So it was just that kind of an incentive. If they wanted to take ownership of it and have their name on it, then, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good recognition, but I think
Yeah.
that we ought to cover that.
But, yeah, I think part of it was, to the mayor's point, was that we don't want to just have somebody say, I'm going to do it.
Just
and then-
sign up 'cause
then-
they can.
Because they can, and then all of a sudden now you.
And they get their name on it.
Then your name's on the mess.
Well, yeah, true.
So the Parks Commission has been working on this for a little bit now. That's
Yeah.
been something they've pushed through, and so I'm happy with it. I'm okay either way, with or without the fee. I see the benefits of it either way, so it doesn't really make a difference to me. I see where people would just do it to do it, and I don't see the city having a problem covering the $90, so I am impartial on that piece of it.
You guys care about the sign?
I mean,
Cost?
if you want to go halvesies on it, I mean, I get the point of having some commitment so that you kind of, I get Dennis's point about it, so I mean, if that's something that we just want to share the cost with, but I mean, if you want to work it out any other way, I don't, really not inclined one way or the other. I just see how it would keep the minutia out.
Okay.
Riff-raff is a better.
Yeah, whatever. Riff raff.
I just got a text from an activist group. They want to talk to Marty.
If you motion it, I'll vote yes. How's that? If it's motioned that way, it won't change my vote either.
I'll make a motion to approve the Adopt a Park program as written, waiving the $90 fee for the group sign.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Now we're on to item H. What's that?
If it's under new business, then it's not really an action item though.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm here to introduce an item to you that will be an eventual ordinance amendment related to adult use cannabis within the city of Dayton. The discussion tonight is specifically related to the zoning side of things rather than the city code and retail registration side.
Okay.
Just a brief overview, in 2023, Minnesota legislature legalized adult use cannabis statewide. The state created 16 license classifications that are listed on the next slide for cannabis-related businesses that they would be required to obtain from the state before conducting operations. The state did retain local, or give zoning authority to the local governments, providing them the opportunity to regulate these businesses in their communities specific to time, place, and manner. And I will just note that by state statute, it's required that all licenses be allowed within a local jurisdiction in some capacity. The cities cannot outright prohibit any of these specific uses. So here's the list of licenses, and the chapter is 342 if you're interested in looking up this information from the statute side of things. The process basically goes, the applicant will fill out an application for the state. The state then will deem the application complete and reach out to the local jurisdiction for zoning to verify compliance with whatever zoning standards is adopted eventually in Dayton. The city will have 30 days to verify that compliance for the state, and after that point, they would then kind of work with each other to make sure that they are compliant, not only on the state side, but the local side as well. And just where the city currently is in the process is that just in August of 2024, the city council did pass a moratorium prohibiting cannabis businesses in town until January 1st, 2025, for discussions like this and ordinances like this to be adopted so they can be in place before businesses start conducting operations. The plan is, following the discussion, this item would then, from the zoning side of things, conduct a public hearing at the planning commission level and ultimately bring to the city council for final consideration and decision. Some of the main discussion points that staff is looking to get direction on tonight is just overall land use related to the licenses and where these things would be permitted within the city. If you read the draft ordinance that was in there, there was a note that required all of the uses related to cannabis licenses be conducted completely indoors. And one of the questions related to that we'd be looking for direction on is, if that is the case, does the city council feel there needs to be any further restrictions on these businesses rather than just looking at them as a manufacturing use standard or a retail use similar to liquor and tobacco? Another one that we wanted to touch on was that the cities are allowed to create buffers from specific things as listed here. One of the things in the draft ordinance was mimicked from the liquor license requirement to be 100 feet from school locations. I think it's 100 actually in the city code, yeah. So that was the one buffer that was mimicked. A question for the city council would be, does the city council feel that there should be any additional buffers required within the limitations provided by statute? And then the other one, generally for home occupations, for lower potency hemp manufacturing, I think as written in the draft, this would be, these cannabis licensed businesses would not be allowed in agriculture and residential districts, and really limit these to just commercial and industrial districts in town. And if there are any other considerations or questions at this point that you want to ask, I will do my best to answer them. This is all new to me and learning as we go. And if I can't answer them, I'll definitely take note of it and hope to get an answer back to you. And then just that note below at the bottom shows what the types of things will be adopted by the city code rather than the zoning ordinance, such as temporary cannabis events, the registration process, hours of operation, and then use in public places, which, if I'm not mistaken, might have already been taken care of earlier this year. We had a great discussion at the planning commission level. The couple of the things that I wanted to note was that given the newness of the retail establishments in town, they recommended that that retail locations would first obtain a CUP wherever these retail locations would be eventually allowed. So staff could have time to do a thorough review of any of the plans that are provided and catch things that maybe we aren't thinking about prior to seeing our first application in that matter. Another thing was limiting cultivation out of the GMU 5, given that that is kind of the I guess the gateway to the city type of zoning district, and they would rather see those limited to the industrial, the I-1 and the I-2, if there was ever any I-2 to be implemented back into the city. The only other thing that I wanted to note from them, it was a great discussion, was that they did have some conversation that they could see that the 500-foot buffer from parks for these cannabis businesses could be something they could see implemented into the zoning ordinance. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or take down any notes that you may have thoughts on this. This is all new. This is just an introductory discussion item only, not looking for any action. Likely could be something that we could bring back for discussion again prior to the public hearing being held probably in November.
So I was at the planning commission meeting. I didn't quite get the. So all the activities have to be done inside.
Correct.
Why does it matter where the manufacturing or the packaging or the non-retail stuff happens? Is there a realistic reason for that?
Within the zoning districts,
Yeah.
or the?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a building somewhere and you don't, it's not like they're doing it out on the front lawn. That's why I'm wondering.
Yeah, and that's the exact question that I had posed related to if we're going to limit these to indoor, is there any reason that the council feels we'd need to look at these beyond what the actual use is, being a manufacturing style business or something like that?
They are currently not, they could be outdoor or indoor. If we want to look at just specifically indoor, that'd be a restriction that we put on the process.
And things like outdoor storage of materials and things like that would be something that wouldn't be allowed on these sites. So those would be the types of things that would be limited in that regard. But generally, yeah, that is the question that was posed.
Scott, you were going to say something?
Yeah, personally, I would think that if you're gonna say it should be 500 feet from a park, it certainly should be 500 feet from a school. And in here it's 100.
Yeah, so that's current city code
Right,
for,
right, right.
for liquor or alcohol, yeah, that's correct.
Alcohol.
So that's what we currently have in city code, so we mimic that in this
Okay.
code.
Yep,
Doesn't
Yep.
mean that, they can be contradictory, but that's just what we have currently in the code,
great.
so.
I'm saying that I would put it
Sure.
to 500.
Sure.
And the other thing I thought I seen in here, but I don't find it now, is should an establishment be up and a school decides to build next to it, the establishment has to deceased.
Cease and desist.
I actually believe that there is a section in the state statute that says that if a school comes in after a cannabis license is allowed on a property, that property is grandfathered in to continue
Okay,
operation.
So-
that's where I would go with it.
So you read that the same way I did?
Yeah.
I misread it. If you reread that again, it's kind of a double negative in there.
Okay, okay.
But so,
Because if it was my business,
yes, yeah.
somebody's gonna not walk away.
All right.
I mean,
I don't, I
either
just,
that or you're buying me.
I had said this previously, but I think we should just treat this as far as sales go, just like liquor. That's my personal belief. I don't see why I would treat this any different than liquor. I get if you're talking about some sort of smoke shop or some sort of, that, then you gotta almost treat it almost like alcohol and tobacco or something. But if we're just talking about, sales or.
Yeah, well, when I saw the 100 feet, I was, feeling like that's why I have it, at that point, but.
The thing is these are gonna get, it's kind of like worrying about, selling cigarettes next to the school. You still gotta show an ID and
Yeah.
they check it. So I don't know. I'm a little bit more.
Yeah,
easy with that stuff.
I'm not sure. I think it should be consistent with the alcohol
Mhm.
sales, and maybe 100 feet isn't enough for that, but we can talk about that more. But I agree it should be consistent, because it could be the same businesses that are doing both. I got confused. I listened to the Planning Commission meeting, and lots of good discussion there, but I did get confused why we are addressing a number 4 or maybe more zoning areas that we don't have currently, and why we need to have them in our ordinance if we don't have them, if they don't exist here.
Well, they don't exist, but they do exist in the zoning ordinance by definition. So I basically took the list of zoning districts that are within the zoning ordinance currently. You might not see them on a zoning map or anything like that, but being that they're defined within the zoning ordinance, there could potentially be an opportunity for someone to request a rezoning to those districts. So it made sense on staff's end to include those regardless of if they exist or not, because there still is the opportunity to have them.
So we define them in our ordinance someplace else?
Correct.
Or for zoning, that they could exist?
Yes.
Okay, that's where I got lost, is why worry about it if we don't have them? But if we've defined them, I guess that makes sense. I had a couple other comments, but I got to get to another page, so somebody else can go here.
So I'm just looking at the questions that are up here after reading it. So the land use, I think if it's inside, I'm not overly worried. I know that the GMU 5 district is the gateway to Dayton. I think when Cubes was built, the gateway to Dayton idea kind of went out the window, in my opinion. So it doesn't really bother me one way or the other, whether it's in GMU 5, just because I'm being realistic to where we are today. I know that wasn't the end goal for that area, but I don't see that as really coming to fruition. It was originally thought out after the Cubes building was allowed. I think that, in my opinion, that made that go out the window. On the buffers, I agree that it should match the alcohol one, and knowing that the alcohol one's only 100 feet from a school, that's not very far. So maybe, as David said, we need to adjust it in general. I could see 500 feet being fine across all of the things that I see here. It doesn't, all those options doesn't bother me for either alcohol or tobacco, right? That doesn't bother me. I think anyone, if we were to change it, anyone currently would be grandfathered in, so on and so forth.
I do want to make one comment. The GMU 5 is only on the south side of 94.
Right.
Only, just so the Cubes wouldn't technically be in GMU 5. GMU 5 is only on the south side of 94. I just want to make sure it's clarified so we know what we're talking about when we refer to that.
Yeah, sure. I don't disagree with that, but I don't think that changes my opinion.
Sure, no, it might not.
That's
Just want to
good
make sure.
clarity, though. I appreciate
Clarity.
that.
Yep.
And then the home occupation, I agree that we should not allow this within homes, if I'm reading that right. Cannabis licenses would not be allowed in agricultural and residential districts. I think that I'm okay with that piece, and I don't have any other considerations or questions after reading it. So, and I will second what David said. I watched the planning commission meeting twice on this item, and I appreciate the discussion that was had amongst the commission members.
And I will note, just to clarify regarding the agriculture district, it was recommended within the draft ordinance that we provided that cultivation be limited to indoor only. I did send this off to the city attorney's office, and after their review, they thought that that might be a preemptive note, and that they might
Strike that.
Right, we might have to allow it in some capacity, or at least in the capacity that the state would allow it. I plan to have a longer discussion with the attorney's offices. I still have questions too that need to be answered.
You know, I wonder what the intent was there, because whoever's growing this, it's clearly a cash crop.
I was gonna say, it's a huge risk to it too. I mean,
You'd think they would secure it somehow.
And that was kind of noted in the discussion, was that really the economic forecast was what I think what was said is not very good for outdoor cultivation in Minnesota, so it might not really be an issue.
Yeah.
Paul, maybe you might be able to answer this. What is the low potency stuff? Are we talking about the equivalent of like 3-2 beer? Is that what that really effectively means? If you eat a whole bag of this stuff, are you going to get off on it, or what's that mean? Talk to me.
No, some of the low potency you can get off of one gummy, you can get intoxicated off of it, or high off of it.
Oh.
So
I think
a lot of people will take one gummy and think it's not doing anything, take another one, and that's where it really.
And then they
4
start
hours later, there.
Yep.
And I think the low potency stuff really is connected to the hemp-derived items that were previously approved in 2018 by the Farm Bill at the federal level. So I think that that's just kind of incorporating what was already legal into the state statute for this item. So that would be those kinds of items.
I was just asking because it's sprinkled throughout here, and I don't really know what that means, but I'm kind of surprised.
Intoxicated off
We didn't have any of these requirements back in the 70s.
So I had two other comments.
Go ahead.
Not to cut anybody off, but on page 74 of our packet anyway, talks about fees, and you know, that it has to be related or half of or up to the fees for the license itself from the state, and so that's something we're going to have to look at, because I know we put some made-up numbers in our fee schedule, and they're not going to match what this says, so that's something we're going to have to look at to make sure that they're in alignment. And my other comment was around the number of these. You know, I think we need to talk about, we have to have one. I think that's pretty much a given. I looked at, you know, they have some language about it. If the county has a certain number per its population, Hennepin County would need 208 establishments for us to not have to have one. So I think that's not. I think we were going to have one at least. But you know, what is our number then? And we should probably define that. You know, are we not worried about it?
I'm not worried about it.
Have no limit.
The reason I'm not worried about it is because they will control each other. I mean, we had 2 liquor stores, and one was run out of gas. I just think that the market will kind of control that. I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, and that, well, that's in a way that's the easier answer, because what I worry about, if we say it's 1 or 3 or 5, then we have to have some process for how we're going to choose the winning bidder, so to speak.
Yep.
And I know they gave a couple of suggestions in the guide from the state. I didn't love any of them. So I'd rather say we deal with them as they come and not have a cap on it.
Yeah,
Is there any interest in municipal dispensary?
No, not me.
None for me.
That just, yeah.
And I think the draft ordinance does note that we would otherwise allow the city to, if they chose to do so. Not that it's something that you would want to do right now, but eventually down the road, if something ever changed or what have you, that opportunity is still there by the ordinance.
Is there a population cap on that, like there is for the municipal liquor store?
I would have to take a look at that. I don't think I saw anything in there that
Osseo was
did.
trying to do it, so they're, what, 400 people or something? I mean, there's not a lot of people in Osseo for a while.
I don't know if there's a cap established yet. That's what
Like
your
a
question.
maximum.
Yeah,
So
we're kind of like half talking about it right now, but if all of a sudden we change our minds, I don't want to get to the point where it's like, oh, we had to make a decision last year, because now we're over this, so we
So-
missed the window, like the
Oh, you're
municipal
talking
liquor
about-
store
yeah,
thing.
that's
Once
true. It
we
was
did over
under.
10,000, we couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
I
for,
can certainly
That's-
take a look
yeah.
at that,
Yeah.
but I don't believe that there is a cap
Okay.
on there.
Not
Yeah,
yet.
I didn't see anything in anything.
I didn't either, but I could,
Good question.
yeah.
Not yet, at least. I'm sure there will be
Yeah.
one eventually, just not right now.
It's all new.
So,
Any other discussion yet? This is strictly discussion. There's no action needed. This will come back to you at a future meeting. So we just want to get as many thoughts down on paper as possible.
No, I've got nothing else on this.
got you anything
Very
else?
fresh.
No. You guys got anything?
I'm good.
I think I've got good notes that touched on all of these, so I appreciate the feedback.
All right.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, let's go on to item I.
Yes, Mayor and members of council, you got this information in your packet. Myself and Amy Schmidt are here to answer any questions you may have, but we're looking for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
We got a question and then comment, but no real discussion needed. The question is, when I read the way this is written, I just want to make sure I know what we're approving. Under the Norwood Lane, it says that city will waive permit fees and fines, and under the Lawndale Lane, that's not listed. So are we not waiving the fines on Lawndale Lane? Because it's not listed in the document as it was proposed.
Mayor, members of the council, that's actually, I think, an oversight in the summary when I wrote it. If I remember the conversation correctly, where we met with the owners of the property, that it was the intention to recommend that the fines be waived on that property as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to alter the motion then? Or not?
Well,
You got to alter the proposed resolution. Okay, I get what you're asking. We could add it in there as a note.
Right, I mean, you can just, if you make the, you can amend the motion to just
Add that in
vote
there.
on it as, you know, with that change.
As amended, yeah.
So the only other discussion point I have is, so let me start by saying that everything was done up to legal code, nothing was done incorrectly or as unadvised by our lawyer. So I understand that 100%. I struggle with us coming to an agreement where not everyone's there, and then when it is in front of the council, we are asked not to dive into it too much.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it feels like I need to approve this, or the ramifications are worse for the city if we don't.
Hands are tied, right?
And so I recognize that all of this done is done in the best nature. I think the shroud behind which this sits, if I was a citizen, would be concerning to me. And that does not sit, again, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, so I want to be very clear with what I'm saying. I'm not saying anyone did anything wrong. What I am saying is the lack of transparency on this. I have a hard time with that. So that, I'm not looking for a response, it's just my statement of where it's at. And with that, I'll be done, and you can feel free to amend your motion if you'd so like.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just, even though you're not asking for a response, I would just clarify that in most situations where code enforcement is occurring, it happens administratively. It happened, staff usually has the authority to address issues with owners. This particular case, because it involved 3 properties and multiple alleged violations at each, it was just a very complicated set of issues to resolve, and it had been going on for quite some time. And so I think it wasn't intended to be a lack of transparency. It was just, it's also very typical for, when there's a complex dispute for, a subset of the council. Like if you were in litigation and you went to mediation, you would have, a subset of the council that's not a quorum participate with staff in reaching some sort of resolution or not in a mediated
And then we'd
setting.
have a closed session where we'd talk about it in depth, and we'd be able to ask more
In
questions.
a
and-
litigation setting,
Correct.
that's
Yeah,
right.
and so
that's-
again, I
That's
don't-
the difference.
Only in litigation.
Yeah, and I don't think anything was done that was improper here. So I just want to continuously say that because it's not the statement
I appreciate
I'm
that.
trying to make at all.
I understand.
And I've been talking to, I meet with Zach weekly, so I've known this has been going on and the background, all these details, and I've met with the property owner one-on-one, and I've gotten his feedback on these as well. So I mean, I've sat through both sides, and I feel like I have a good understanding of what's been going on with these properties on my side.
Okay.
What I'm saying is it's unfortunate that with the fact that we're essentially waiving $7,000 in fines, that the public has no real insight as to why that's happening. And so that's where I get that's where it's a little hard for me. And so with that, again,
Would you like to elaborate on why we would do that?
I could. It was part of the negotiation that we were engaged in. I mean, it was just part of the conversation that it was.
we don't have to, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to get, I'm not trying to make this discussion, it was asked to make it short, but I wanted to be able to say my piece, and that's all I wanted.
That's fair.
Yep.
I just, it was just part of a universal resolution to all of the issues.
Heard. Did you want to amend your motion, Dave? I don't know who motioned, but somebody did.
I think that
So,
was
so we've done this recently with a minor issue. Somebody had grass problems. There was a negotiation, and the problem was resolved. Going to court is expensive.
And again, I understand that, and that's why I'm going to vote yes on this, and I'm going to go along with it, so that's not the point I'm trying to make. I think that what I'm trying to make is maybe being missed, but go ahead. I don't know who motioned it, but someone has to amend their motion, whoever motioned it.
The mayor motioned it.
Yep, all amended.
Yep.
As such. Okay, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. On to item J.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Tonight we're looking to approve the preliminary levy and general fund budget. Again, this is preliminary levy. This does not mean that is the final levy. We can always go down, but this is the ceiling. Provide some background information for you just so we know where we're at as of today. Right now, we are looking at a 16.63% increase in the general fund levy, or the overall levy for this community. About just under half of that is for the general fund. The other portion is $380,000 for capital equipment, $15,000 for park capital equipment, and $300,000 for pavement management. $380,000 capital equipment breakdown. There is $180,000 worth of the future fire ladder truck in that number. So just so everyone's aware of the breakdown of where those dollars are going towards. Again, we don't have to worry about the total breakdown, but I do want to make sure that that's noted. Is that essentially a contingency in that levy number. The overall community, so 16.63% increase in the levy, 16.18% change in the property valuations or increases based on new construction. Roughly 14.2% of that is new construction, and then 2% is roughly change in values for existing businesses or existing homes. The tax rate is anticipated to decrease with this 16.63% increase in the levy, which means that individuals will pay less tax for the city next year if their house value stayed the same. I know it's very difficult to assume and adjust, but that is the general answer. And that will be, right now it's at 35.64. I will get to the details of what that actually means in a house impact on a homeowner in a slide or two. These two graphs just kind of give a generic kind of easier than maybe numbers to look at how the tax levy compares to the tax capacity. So the black line on the top graph is the tax capacity as that takes off. The further difference between the bar on the bottom, which is the levy, and that tax capacity means that's what our tax rate is. So as you can see, as the differentiation gets larger, so does the tax rate. The tax rate actually gets smaller percentage. So we were quite heavy in the tax rate 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was above 50%, 55%, somewhere in there. Yep, it was pretty high. Today we sit at 35.64, like I mentioned, and 35.53 is the preliminary 25. The bottom graph just shows the relationship between the capacity and the tax levy. As you can see, the biggest year that we had for tax capacity increase happened to be our lowest increase of the year for the tax levy. That was in 2023 fiscal year. A big reason for that too was the debt fell off as well that year. So we were able to capture those debt dollars and reallocate them over to general funds. So that is a bit deceiving, but it's not quite, totally, it's a little harder to explain maybe than easily accessible. But final tax rates for 2024. It's good to know where we're at with other communities. I don't know what any preliminary numbers are from any other community yet, but I can tell you where ours is at. I have 35.64 and here needs to be 35.53. I must have moved the wrong number over, and then we'd just be just under Rogers, under Champlin, under Hanover, but more than Maple Grove, more than Independence, more than Plymouth. So I just took some communities that are around us in Hennepin County. Other counties are not quite as transparent with their tax rates. I don't know why, but like Anoka County is like impossible to get their tax rates off their website. I don't know why they're so difficult. But, I did send an email to the finance director of Anoka County to see if he could help me out with those. I don't know why, but it just seems more difficult than it should be. Here's the impact on taxes for people's homes. Like I mentioned, there is a decrease. So if your average value, which is $525,000, that did not change from 2024 to 2025. It would go down $6 for the year or 50 cents a month. What I would chalk it up to is it's about even, is what you'll see. Depends on what the county does with valuations too. I want to make sure everyone notes that we have nothing to do with the valuations of homes. If homes go up in value, that has nothing to do with us. That's probably related to sales or review of the overall home values in your area. And then just some general notes, just for everybody to know. A 1% reduction for the levy, so going to 16.63 to 15.63 is equivalent to $17 a year, or $1.42 per month. And that 1% reduction in levy dollars is $78,000 for the city. And then a 1% reduction in levy dollars results in a 0.33% reduction in your tax rate. So kept that 1% reduction every time, and here's what it means on the different values for people or for the city. What I'm looking for today is to be able to approve the resolution 46, 2024 and 47, 2024, which is the preliminary tax levy and the EDA preliminary tax levy. The EDA number is at 0 still. That was based on council direction. They may still look to approve a budget next year based on operations, but that will just come out of previously reserved dollars and not out of new dollars. So there is a tax rate decrease, and I will stand for any questions. Again, I want to note this is the ceiling. We can always go down from here. We can't go up. These are the numbers that will go on people's property tax preliminary bills that come out in November, along with the TNT meetings. But
does this build in a buffer for the upcoming contract negotiations as well? Because that's a bit of an unknown for us right now, right?
Yeah, we do have a few unknowns. Obviously, there's always some things that change throughout the year. There could be health insurance changes. We have those now, and all of those are able to be baked into this. It's not quite as easy and simple for us as other communities may be, but we did see over an 11% increase in health insurance for next year, which is incredible. I don't know when those numbers are going to stop, but we've seen some serious increases. And then, yeah, depending on which budget you're looking at and what your numbers are for your budget, the $180,000 for the future ladder truck, to pay for that, all of that money is essentially what do you want to call it, contingency or buffer dollars. Depending on what your number is per council member, is what I'm saying by you. You have upwards of 180 or 80 or 40 or whatever you want to say for some negotiation. But that's the negotiation, or I wouldn't say that's the negotiation number because it's not the negotiation number, but that's the overall contingency we have for the city. For next
When does
year.
this have to be filed?
Filed.
I mean, can we also look at making any changes at the next meeting? Is it at the end of September?
Yes, end of September is when we typically pass the preliminary tax levy, so I highly suggest not waiting until the second meeting. We can. It's a little tighter.
Yep, I get it.
We can if that's something that comes to it, but again, this is the ceiling. I will say that city staff is of the understanding that this will come down from where it's at right now. We just don't know what it's going to be for final numbers, so we don't want to handcuff ourselves to have to pay or redo something else to pay for something that we have to have. when it comes to union negotiation
And we
contracts.
can always, I'm sure everybody knows this, but we can always totally rearrange the furniture, but we just have to
Correct,
hit
yeah.
that cap.
So that's why I tried to not go into too many details of like what includes in each one of those numbers.
Okay.
And I'll go back to the screen that I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
That's this screen here for everyone at home or watching later on. The dollars per levy are not set in stone. It's just the total number that we have to worry about, the $1.3 million number, and I'm using that as a rounding number, but we can move around those dollars anywhere you want. So say you take, okay, pavement management next year, 50 grand, we don't need that, we're gonna move it to the general fund and pay for something else. You can most certainly do that, and it's not gonna break the bank or do anything to us. We can move the money around, we just can't tax any more for 2025, so.
So I'll motion that we put the preliminary tax levy at 35.53% as recommended.
Got it, so the same levy, okay, got it, 35.53% tax rate.
Yeah.
Got it.
What you're recommending in your,
Got it.
what the city staff recommends.
Yep.
For now.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Matt and Dave, discussion. I mean, we've kind of hammered on this quite a bit, so, and by the way, this is a good job because you're getting 5 totally different inputs.
That is
So,
probably the
yeah.
most difficult
Yep,
item for
I
staff
get
to
it.
deal with, is that every single one of the council members has a different
It's
object
different,
or
yes.
discussion that they want to have for the levy next year. And we do our best to get as close as we can to everybody, so
Oh, I guess.
I appreciate that though.
Yeah, I guess I don't mean to bring the elephant up in the room, but I would like to see that there is some capacity built in for what the fire department requests as far as those 2 firefighters. And I don't know if that is captured under that 35.5 or 6 that we've got, but I think we would,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I'll give you some information, just because Councilmember Henderson,
Mm-hmm.
you brought it up. So what is included in this number, the 35.53% tax rate or the 16.63% tax levy,
Mm-hmm.
is $30 an hour for current paid on call, but it's the same paid on call system, no new full timers at all.
Yeah.
But it is $30 an hour for part time.
Yeah, I think that's just totally missing the mark though, so.
Yeah, to me, I want to provide
Yep.
the information of what it was.
Yep.
I did provide all of those numbers on a weekly update. I believe I went back and looked, it was August 16th, so if you want to go back and look at the breakdown of those numbers, that's the number that we utilized, was
Yep.
$30 an hour, so.
And I think the mayor said it well. We're setting the size of the room, but the furniture moved around in it. So it's not set in stone as to where any of the necessarily funding's going to go. So I think we have
Yeah, I
time to talk about that in further if we want.
Yeah, I 100% get that. I just, if you're not gonna announce it, then, if you're not gonna say like, hey, there's capacity built in there, or, yeah, we can rearrange the room, but like, that's one thing that should not leave the room. So,
As long as you brought it up, and we're going down that rabbit hole a little
we
bit.
almost got out of here.
I was going to say that.
almost.
It's so hard.
Go ahead, Scott.
There was a post yesterday. Great post. I have no issues with it. The only issue I have with it is a third person jumped into it, and I don't think we can go down that rabbit hole anymore.
I commented first on the post, so don't look at me. I wasn't the third person to comment. Technically, you were. It was his post, and I commented on it. So you were the third one to comment.
I don't see it.
So,
Anyway,
if we're not, yeah,
the
rules
way
don't
that
apply
came
there,
out,
so why should they
No,
apply now?
that's fine. I get it.
my comment on that deal is, to me, it's a little misleading when we say the cost is only 8,000 more.
The cost of
When-
the city is $8,000 more. That was in Zach's email. He sent to all of us.
I understand that,
Okay.
but the dollars are coming from the households instead of state aid. So it's a little deceptive to say it's only going to cost, if you look at the program, you are correct.
Yep.
It
We get
costs 8,000 more,
$100,000 in state aid to help cover that.
but we
yeah.
won't get that.
We
We
still
get-
get the,
no,
we
we
still
get
get it. We just get to keep it as the city versus giving it to the fire relief.
I called the auditor's office today about this, and we don't get it. It comes from the residents are actually paying for that.
It's part of their insurance costs, and that gets
Correct,
given
correct.
back. But the residents are paying for it right now either way, Scott.
Correct,
That
but the
doesn't
way
change.
the way this program is set up is we're going to get rid of the retirement fund.
No.
So
well,
then-
we're going to get rid of the fire relief, which
Fire
is not
relief fund,
and
that's
moving them
going to
over
be gone.
Doing them to a different retirement fund, correct?
Well, if we get rid of that fund, then we don't get the state aid money. We still get some of that money to go to para.
I will clarify to make sure, and we have confirmed with the
Okay.
state auditor's office, so I don't know who you contacted
Mike.
there, I want to make sure, okay. And I can talk to Mike too.
Okay.
We have confirmed with the state that we get the entire state aid dollars, because we're still putting it towards a retirement account. So the insurance money comes from the homeowners, and it's paid on your on home insurance bill, so whenever you get that, take a look at it. It's called 2% money,
There's
so
2%
2% of your
money. Yep.
insurance
Yep.
goes to the state fire, basically marshal's office, and they disperse the money to the communities based on call volume, population, and number of firefighters that each community has.
Yep.
We still get that money. So right now, what happens is every community that has a fire, paid-on-call fire department, gets the money and then pays it out to them, to the paid-on-call firefighters, and then it's paid out through their pension fund. So they get an X number of amount per year. That's how much they get for their retirement. We did call the state to verify this is possible, and it is possible. So Chief Hendrickson and I did work with the state together to verify that. Does it have to be a pension fund, or can it be any retirement fund? And per their comments were, as long as it's scheduled time, so that everyone has the equal amount that they can get, which is the duty crew model that would supplement that full time,
Yep.
and there it goes to a retirement account and not into their pocket as in cash, as in wages, we can use that money, all of it, to pay for those things. What the biggest advantage of going to full-time versus the paid-on-call system is that currently Chief Hendrickson and Assistant Chief Ostrup, we have to pay their para, as in their retirement, out of our taxpayer dollars. If we utilize the state aid money, we can utilize that state aid money to pay for their retirement as well, on top of the paid-on-call system. So it's actually a supplement to the city and not actually a degradation.
At some point, there's a cap.
So it will cap. So basically what it's capped at right now, we would only get, and for example, we use the numbers that we had there. I think it was like $97,000 we get in para costs. That's what the rough number is, guess. And that's our budget number. That's based on how many hours and whatever. So that might go up or down, but we would only be able to get as much retirement as we're paying out from the state. So say we're eligible for $110,000 worth of retirement dollars from the state, from fire, state aid. We'd only be able to collect 97 of that 110. It's not a loss to us. It's just
Yeah.
we can't collect more than we paid out in retirement. That's the cap.
And when we looked at the budget the last time,
Yep.
we had, here's the adders and here's what happens if you do this. We
Yep.
obviously didn't know that then.
We did not. Yep. So when we did 2024's budget, we said we'll take the relief money in, and we'll just pay it out to them in an hourly wage, which the chief and I worked on extensively and said, why can't we do that? That's the same thing.
I agree.
They can then take that money and put it into retirement or do whatever they want with it. But the state said, we are not going to give you your fire relief aid unless you pay it directly to them as retirement. And then it wasn't equal because it's not scheduled time, so everyone has not the same playing field when they're looking at that kind of system. Whereas in the fire relief system, everyone has the same exact chance of getting the money at the beginning of the year, as long as they meet their requirement, whether
Yeah.
that's 20 hours a month or 25% of calls,
Whatever
or
those
whatever
stipulations
whatever
are,
the
yeah.
stipulation is, everyone has the same chance of getting it at the beginning of the year, which is why it works with that retirement. So this year in 24, we're doing the same thing we've done
Yep.
historically, which is get the money in, paid off to the relief, and they get to, they still have their $17 an
And
hour.
that new model would balance that
You
out.
can
too.
clarify and.
Yeah,
put a
Mayor,
pen in my back.
Mayor and members of council, I can simplify it this way. The Brooklyn Park Relief Association dissolved a few years ago when I was there. When they dissolved and they went to full-time staffing, the dollars that are, it's no different than the police department. The 2% dollars, if you will, then automatically the city collects, and it goes to paying the pensions or part of that 17.8% that's put into police and fire repair. So that's a good example. Edina is another example of that. They dissolved their relief association. They just have full-time fire there now as well. And the city is the recipient of those dollars as long as they're utilized to offset the 17.8% for police fire repair retirement.
The same thing I said is that you still get it, so it's not gone. It's not going to cost taxpayers anything. It actually costs taxpayers less because we get to utilize the state's money for the retirement of both Chief Hendrickson and Assistant Chief Ostrup, which we can't do now because it just goes right to the relief. And Chief Hendrickson and Assistant Chief Ostrup are not part of the relief at all. They're
Right.
0% participants in that. So it is actually a benefit to us a little bit. But
Does that help, Scott, clarity-wise?
Well,
'Cause that's
we have to
exactly
make
what I'm
sure,
saying.
because Mike said we don't get it.
Yeah, correct. So we will confirm with Mike, and I can also talk to, our contact is Rose, and I can confirm with both of them to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding something and Chief Hendrickson isn't misunderstanding something, but as far as we are aware, nothing changes with what we get as long as it's for retirement purposes, which we're gonna use it for retirement purposes.
And other cities are doing this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Edina
Today.
and some people.
So, and that's part of the stuff we can,
Yeah, those things we can discuss from now
and clarify and.
Yep, clarify and stuff. I'm sure we'll have more work sessions or discussions on them at council
the end of the
meetings,
year.
because we're gonna have to decide where those monies exactly decide up by December. Because after December, that's hard nose, we can't change
Yep.
these allocations. Those are stuck in stone in December.
And the chief's door is always open. I mean, I've gone and talked to him, try to better understand this multiple times to make sure I had a good grasp of it. So it doesn't hurt to talk to him as well.
What does that pavement put us at? I think I've asked that before, but are we up to,
So it would be just
Yeah.
over 1.5 million.
okay.
In total dollars per year in revenue, because
And then-
part of it comes from tax levy, part of it comes from those franchise fees.
Franchise fees, and then,
Which is roughly 600 grand a year, give or take.
oh, it's gone up to 600. So, and
Well, it
then
goes
the
up with every
MSA
house that goes in, so every
It-
house
yeah.
that,
Or
adds a
every
couple bucks a year.
industrial.
Or industrial one,
yeah.
or size, whatever the size of the gas
And then the
meter is.
MSA will kick in probably another 400 or 500 the next year. So we should be,
Yeah, so next
Okay.
year, in 26 budget, we will have the, what's it called again? Like in the MSA dollars,
MSA
right?
dollars.
Yeah, state aid dollars. So the Pine View project will be paid off, and we will get that money,
Yep.
which is roughly about 400 grand. And then we can utilize those dollars for state aid roads. So it'll be in good shape, hopefully.
So I have a couple of comments I want to make. Not quite sure how to phrase this, but I want to, because I generally don't weigh in on Facebook posts, but Travis, I do have to say that you made some comments in there that hurt me personally. You know, it characterizes a vote against moving ahead with this as being somehow not compassionate. And I think you all know, I spent my entire career, over 40 years, working in a hospital. So I think I've demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt that my head and my heart are in the right place in terms of how I see public safety and how I see us spending our money. I think it comes off as we're not supporting the fire department, and I just want to point out a couple of facts. In my time on the council, we've increased the fire department budget 351%. That's not small change. That's a real number. That's real progress. I think we were behind on where we needed to be. I think we probably still are. We've also committed $3.68 million toward new fire trucks just this year.
Yeah.
That's something like 46%, or the equivalent to 46% of our whole city budget, just those two items. So I think the lack of equipment, or the lack of commitment is here with this council. I think that we disagree on timing and some of the details of it. I had a good meeting with Chief Hendrickson a couple of weeks ago. I think we talked for quite a while, and I explained my position on why I'm not supporting that change for this year. We have made a lot of changes over the last couple of years, and some of the things that we were expecting as deliverables was a 5-year plan for the fire department. We don't have that yet. And I'm not pointing fingers at Chief Hendrickson or anybody else. Nobody expected him to solve all of our problems in a year or two, right? This is a journey we're on. So I'm not pointing fingers there, but there were also things like a policy and procedure manual that we knew we didn't have in the way that we should for the fire department, and we still don't. Emergency management, we don't have a citywide emergency management plan, and that was a priority for me anyway, when we were adding a chief and then an assistant chief position, that we work on that. I know there's progress on it, but it's not done. I also think that, I think that the commitment is there. I don't think that this is the time to move forward with that plan. I think that the paid on call, or the duty crew model probably is the right way for us to go, but I think we've still got a lot of things that we need to do to get ready for that, and that's why I'm not voting for it this year.
I appreciate your sentiment as much as I disagree with it, but, you know, I hear you, and, you know, like I said, it's more or less, everything I hear you bring up are the blockades to the operational efficiencies. This is really ridden on the backs of residents who are telling you, we can't commit anymore and we need help in that department. They don't need the policies and procedures manual. They're operating right now. Like, that's not something that should block them from getting the work-life balance.
These things are legal liabilities for the city. They're not things that we can say we don't need because it's not, because we just need more guys or we need to use them in a different way.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but like,
I just wanted to make those comments.
There's
Put out what
how
you
it's
had to say,
imagined that
and
it's
that's
done, then there's.
This is my response to you.
I agree.
All right, I'm offended that you think that that I don't care about anything but the dollars.
I never pointed to anything to you.
All right, you guys.
Well, I would
Never
disagree
did,
with
so.
that.
Yeah.
You're saying that anybody that votes against us, which will include me.
And future councils and whatever else. I mean, it's not directly pointed at anybody. I'm just hearing what my people are saying.
Well, I have a lot of opinions about that,
Okay.
but I'm going to leave it at that for now. I think we've made a strong commitment to the fire department. I think it's an ongoing commitment. I think that we've got some catch-up work to do to set the stage for this model to be successful, and I don't think it's in 2025. I also would like to point out that I don't think that we've had some discussion around the conversion from the fire relief fund to the para fund. We've missed that deadline for 2025. The cutoff for an application for them to consider a change was July 15th.
So I'll let you keep going, then I can provide some information. If you get
All
me,
right.
go ahead. I
So-
can provide it back then.
It doesn't change my mind about anything, but I don't think we can make that conversion even if we wanted to move ahead with it in 2025. I think that's a 2026 issue at that point. I could be wrong at that, but I'm looking at the form, and it very plainly says in bold text, July 15th of the calendar year to be considered for the following year.
So we should probably have the discussion if we're going to have it early next year, not
So-
wait till budget season, because otherwise we're
Well,
going to
we
miss it every
can't-
year.
we can't,
Yeah,
because
no,
we'll
no, I
miss
know,
it
but
every year.
I'm not saying for next year, I'm saying I'm going to make the assumption it's not going to pass this year. So if we assume that, good. If we wanted to implement it in 26, let's say, and I'm not saying we want that either, but if we did, we'd have to make a decision well before we make normal budget decisions, which is the end of the year. We'd have to have that conversation in the first 3 to 4 months of next calendar year, even though that's way before we normally talk about budget stuff, so that way that could get done to be implemented. That's all I was saying.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Certainly
I'm,
before
I'm
July
recognizing your
15th.
call out, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I
Certainly
want to
before July 15th.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was
Well,
my
and
I want to provide a little information from what the comment, and that is correct. So you were 100% correct on moving from para. It has to be July 15th of the fiscal year. So what that form is for is if the fire relief, so currently our fire relief manages their own investments. So they have to invest dollars into different investment funds so that they can have their retirement for, all the firefighters in the relief. If you want para to manage those investments instead of the individual fire relief, that's the deadline we're talking about is July 15th. That does not mean para like what we mentioned. So what's a little confusing, and I would agree with you 100% that it is confusing, is para can be managed. So you can have your investments from the fire relief managed by para, as in they have trained professionals that do it and kind of can guarantee interest rates. What it ends up doing is sticking the fire relief, and this is why the fire relief has not done it, is because it caps the amount per year that you can earn as a firefighter in pension dollars. So I think right now it's like $32.50. So it caps that and says it has to be $32.50 for 5 years. And so that's why this fire relief in Dayton has not done it, because they don't want to be locked in at $32.50 every year for 5 years, because they might see that they want to go from $32.50 to $37.50 for their relief. What we are talking about on our side of para is an actual physical pension relief, or I shouldn't say pension relief, a direct benefit relief that happens that's forever. So it's a totally different fund. It doesn't go into a managed fund like from para. It goes just like I pay my para in every single check. 7.5% of my pay goes right to para, and then the city matches 6.5% of my pay for Chief Hendrickson and Chief Enga they get matched 17.8%, and then they put in 11 point something. There you go. And they put that amount in from their check, and then the city matches 17.8. But it's a individual account, not a group account then at that point. So that means every individual person can decide what kind of investments they want to use, or they can have para do the defined benefit for 2055 or something, just like you would at your normal employer for your 401k. So there is that. I would agree it's confusing, but I do want to provide a little information. If we don't have to decide if we're going to go to para by an individual account by July 15th, we just have to decide by July 15th if we want to do it as a whole fire relief organization wants to do a group investment. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It's confusing as
Yeah.
mud. I get it.
No, I get that
So,
it's a separate deal.
It's a totally separate
We would
deal.
want to do that, though, wouldn't we, at some point?
So our fire relief has, I think I suggested it when I first came here in 21. I said, I would highly suggest you guys go to para for your fire relief. And I remember coming in and talking to the fire relief and saying, I highly recommend it because it's guaranteed income, basically. They guarantee a dividend. Whereas somebody has to manage all those investments. The treasurer typically of the fire relief has to manage those investments for everybody. And if they screw up an investment, they've lost $150,000, and now the fire relief's all mad at them that they lost that money. So, and they have not elected to do that. They said, nope, we'd rather take our own risk and do it ourselves and not have para manage our dollars. If you went with the new the retirement that we're talking about with Chief Hendrickson and I, with the $30 an hour and the not having the para involved or not having fire relief involved at all, then every individual person would manage their own investments individually and not as a group. And that would not be dedicated to, that's just run by the Public Employees Retirement Association overall as a giant organization, not as a group.
It's equivalent to a 401k.
Correct, yep. Yep, you move from having a group investment to having a 401k essentially, is what it turns into. Or 57B, whatever you want to call it.
Mayor, members of council, just real quick, I won't belabor the issue, but the Relief Association will also take roughly about 6 months to dissolve. So let's assume it was approved for January. There would be no movement necessarily to put anything in place until probably mid-July, just because there's certain things that they have to go through. They have to post in the local paper, make sure all debts and all this other things. So it is another 6-month process after that. So just for informational purposes.
How is that today? Is that pension fund funded? I mean, what percentage are we at?
Boy, last time we looked at it,
I
I thought it was 100.
Yeah, I thought it was above 100%.
It is above 100%. I don't know the specific numbers, Mayor.
Okay.
But the other thing, too, to the benefit of kind of what Zach and I and the organization are looking at is it relieves the city's liability
Yeah.
as well. So if it did get down, I think 80% or 90%?
90% is considered underfunded, and then the city is required
To kick in.
For an amount. And that's, when I say kick in, I mean, we have a fire relief state aid dollars that comes to us and we pass through. But we also had in the past a $20,000 amount per year, and as the council
That
may
was
remember.
just to catch up.
Just to catch up to make sure we're at least
And
keeping.
the reason I mention that is because it is beyond 100% now. So,
Yes.
I mean, typically we wouldn't have put in the 20.
Correct.
But, I mean, we could still use it to
Yep.
finagle the furniture.
Correct. Yep, it is. That 20,000, I believe, is in this current
It is.
25.53% budget. It can be removed if that's what the council's decision is. Hey, we don't want to fund it any more than 100. I think it's 103, but I don't remember that for a fact. That was the last time I talked to the treasurer. But
The last fire relief meeting I was at, and they always happen to be on city council meetings, the nights, and that one wasn't. They were talking about pulling the funds out and putting them in cash.
My understanding, as we were looking at moving to this type of system, is they did move all their assets to cash right now, so they're not necessarily gaining anything, but they're not losing dollars either at the moment, just to protect, from a payout perspective.
Correct.
And the relief, I have zero control. Zach has zero control over that group. It's all the fire relief board and the firefighters themselves.
yeah, which is what I made note of. I went to the fire relief and said, I would do this if I was me, and the relief said, we don't want to do that. I said, okay, sounds good. Then it's not up to me. No different than I have no vote here. I don't have a vote there either. So.
Got more to say, dude?
No, I'm done.
I'm good.
You good? Okay, I think, yeah, like I said, we've hammered this over the months, so.
Agreed.
Okay, we got a motion.
I understand, so.
Huh?
It will be discussed more at future meetings. I understand.
Yes. We got a motion and a second, and there's no more discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed say no.
No.
No. Dave, were you an aye?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Motion failed.
Would like to be an amended motion so we can have a tax levy for this year, or do we want to come back on the 24th?
So,
Then we were required to pass on the 24th.
Can we
We will
discuss
be
real quick or
returning.
not?
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
this-
Travis, is your
It's up to
concern
the it's up to the mayor.
$8,000 for
The language
so-
isn't in there.
So, but we're not getting language in it this meeting, with this meeting or the next meeting, it's not gonna be there?
Presented with it, though. I mean, I'd like to see it in there, so.
But it's a preliminary piece and it can fit in the
I
5.5,
understand.
it can fit in less than 35.53.
Okay.
I don't know if that changes your opinion at all. But it will fit in the, if we could get the votes for that particular piece, it will fit in the 35.53. Because I know it'll fit in the 35.35 I presented. So it'll fit in the 35.53 if that piece gets the votes in their council members.
I'm just looking out for my guys.
I know you
it's
are.
It's not about me at this point. It's the 29 others that are underneath me, so.
I want to remind the council, we have to have a levy passed. I don't care if it's at this one.
I
we can have it
agree.
on the 24th.
If we don't do it now, it's gonna be at the same number. in
I'll
2
make a
weeks.
motion to set the levy at 35.53.
well, okay, you mean you want to,
Okay,
you want to,
35.54.
what's the term?
You want something different there?
Well, no, you basically want a, what is the name for redoing a motion that you just did?
That you just
Gosh.
no.
Yeah.
You wanna
There's a
change it by
specific
21
name.
something?
Yep,
You
it's
wanna
starts-
up or down one, you tell me.
Did I,
Hold on, give me a minute.
Look at
Give me a minute.
Huh?
did I make the motion?
I'll motion, you want up, well, point one or
You
down
guys
one?
can't.
Nope, they can't. Nope.
But he can.
I can.
Up a point or
Yeah,
down the point.
you can, yep. Give me a second, I'll have it. It was
Doesn't matter to
in
me.
my last email.
Bring the book every week and not this week.
We can make this really,
We're learning a lot tonight.
For all of our thousands of viewers out there, I'm sorry for this delay, but
if we motion at 35.54, do we need this name or can we just move on with the meeting?
it's still the resolution numbers and no, I think we have to keep with
Cannot
what we
find it.
had.
I'm on the quick guide of
Okay,
Robert's rules.
give me a minute, I will get to it. Rescind, boom.
Or is it a motion to reconsider?
No, it's reconsider, that's
It's a
what it
motion to
is.
reconsider.
Because the rescind would, yeah.
So the correct
Okay.
language I should use is I make a
It was
motion to
hard, but there's too
reconsider.
many of them.
And you know what?
fine.
I think everybody knows what we mean. We're basically gonna flush the last
Thanks,
vote
Jason.
and redo this motion. And you can do that because you're on the winning side, so.
So I'll make a motion to reconsider.
I'll second.
Okay.
Do we have to restate the
But it is
motion
the
or
exact same motion.
It's the exact
Yes.
motion.
Okay, so you're not going to change,
the numbers?
okay.
Nope. 35.53 is the
Just-
As
motion.
long as
You all
legally I
So
am,
was
the
Travis.
city is
And
Are you good with that, Amy?
correctly.
From a legal standpoint?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the
good.
initial motion failed. The winning side reconsidered the motion that was previously met. That's correct. Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
so, okay, and Matt, you seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion? All right,
Good.
Well,
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
no.
No. So, we're passed, 3-2.
Thank you.
3. Oh, were you still in?
I'm still, yeah, we'll go over it next time. Okay,
A
if
motion to
there
adjourn.
are no objection, what? About the what?
About the Facebook issue.
You can give a short blurb, sure.
Mayor, before you adjourn, I just wanted to, there's been some discussion back and forth as you've been discussing the budget item where it's apparent that there was some conversation on Facebook where whoever chimed in third, whatever the order is, I haven't seen the posts myself, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate that according to the open meeting law, if the members of the council are engaged in social media discussing city council business or matters that will come before the council or have been or will be under consideration by the council, it's really important to remember that even if you're not together, it still could be considered a meeting under the open meeting law. So, I mean, I understand the need to communicate with the public and talk about the issues that the council is considering, but I just, as a reminder, want you to be mindful of how you do that on social media. If you have more questions about serialized meetings is what it would be considered under the open meeting law. If you have questions about how to best manage social media activity in your role as a council member, let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so now, if there are no objections, we'll be adjourned. And we're adjourned.